Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast, where it's finally race week again. Yeah. So it's finally race week. We've got some stuff to talk about, and did I say it's finally race week? It feels like forever.
Finally.
Yeah.
Apparently there are 24 races. There are too many races, but we still have 2 months off. You have to do...
I think Matt from P1 is correct on this. But I think Matt from P1 is correct on this. I think there was supposed to be a race like slotted in or something, and they had to change something last minute because it doesn't make any sense.
That happened last year, right? 24 races already. What more race was supposed to be there?
No. I mean, I think that one of the races had to move or something late in the calendar.
Could be.
Because it doesn't make any sense to have like 4 weeks now, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And it's not
but
like
we've got two
the
triple
last race
headers
was
now,
in
right?
Singapore, right? Singapore to United.
Yeah.
It's not. They could walk. They could walk to Austin in 4 weeks. Honestly.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Singapore, one of those races, was supposed to have like a week break in between or a 2 week break in between. They couldn't do it.
That would have made more sense.
Yeah.
And easier for us as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
definitely.
we got a good podcast in last time around.
We upset some people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
If you did, subscribe.
Yes, exactly.
That was fun.
So what do we got to talk about? We've got some news. Well, we haven't got news really. No, we do have news.
Yeah,
do we
not
have
news. There have been a
Haas.
few. Mattia Binotto having a very weird interview. I mean, we'll talk about it a bit towards the.
I haven't seen it, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, such a genius the guy is. It makes me wonder how he ended up at the top of Ferrari, but then it makes it makes
Ferrari.
sense as well right now.
Yeah.
It's Ferrari after all. So,
Toyota and Haas, that's an interesting one. That starts from Austin.
That's going to be worth... Should we start with that?
Maybe, because it does feel to me like Toyota wants to perform just as well as it did last time it was in the sport, but spend less money doing it. That's...
Oh, God.
It's like... But hey, if Haas gets some podiums, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, that's going to be tough. But anyways, let's jump straight into it. First of all, let's talk about the whole Toyota-Haas partnership. Just the basic details that I have been able to gather from a few sources. The situation that it seems like at this point is Ferrari will continue to do what it does as a partnership with Haas.
Yeah.
Dallara is the one that is currently your main key manufacturing partner, which is basically building the chassis and everything. So maybe in due time, that is a role that Toyota is going to take over to a certain extent.
Yeah.
There's a new simulator that is actually being finally, I think it's commissioned or it will be commissioned soon. Toyota has a hand in that. So by 2025, by the way, until now, Haas did not have a simulator. So that's also interesting. They will have one next season.
Yeah.
Also, it does appear that in terms of technical know-how, where Toyota comes into the picture is it's not something similar to just having providing aerodynamic inputs and stuff like this. It's basically, maybe to an extent, provide some investment. The whole thing about building a new factory and something is still not clear, but at least it does appear that by next season, the Cologne wind tunnel is one where they might move to from the Ferrari, from basically piggybacking everything from Ferrari. They'll slowly start becoming a more independent unit.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole technical partnership thing comes into picture. So the Toyota Gazoo Racing, I think what Toyota wanted to do initially was just help promote the Japanese talent. So Hitomo Mayata, he's in Formula 2.
Keep ranting for a second. Someone has decided to mow the lawn directly outside my window, so I'm going to close it. I'm going to shoot someone and close the window at the same time.
It's okay, it's Mexico, you can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go ahead and do it. So yeah, just to explain, Jason knows about it. Ritomo Mayata is one driver that is backed by Toyota. Then there's Kamui Kobayashi, remember him? He's also a Toyota backed driver. So probably Miyata is going to get an opportunity in FP1s next season. I won't be surprised if he does. And that's the initial goal for Toyota.
Yeah.
The next goal will be slowly building a certain knowledge base, certain understanding of the sport until 2028. Because until then, Ferrari has the contract with Haas. Once that is done, then they take things forward, or what happens next, we really don't know. At least for now, there won't be a Toyota power unit. We can be rest assured.
No, I think at the very earliest that'll be 2028, 2029, right? If they were going to do that.
Mostly 2030 in that case, right?
Yeah, because I think that the contract with Ferrari is 2028, right? I'm not sure if that's start of 2028 or end of 2028, but yeah.
End of 2028.
Right, so 2029. Yeah, so you're probably going to wait until a new regulation.
The new regulations are in 2030, and we have it might even be the end
when
of
they
the
reverse
hybrid,
when they reverse all this nonsense that they made to bring new manufacturers in and then didn't bring new manufacturers in. They actually lost one. So genius. Yeah, it seems like a logical step from both of these guys, to be fair. Like, I think it's probably for the best that they're not making any big kind of, we're going to be a full works
big
team.
deal about it.
Yeah, what was it Toyota said exactly was, this is not us back in F1 and we don't want to see headlines saying we're back in F1, to which
Sky
Formula
Sports
1,
had
Liberty
that
Media. Liberty Media and F1 responded with, Toyota's back in F1. So, but I think it makes perfect sense, because I reckon over time what it means is that they can start kind of perhaps having a proper technical partnership eventually, but it kind of Toyota Gazoo Racing doesn't want to kind of dive in full force, but they have some stuff that can help. So it kind of is a nice ease into a relationship. And I guess what they'll do is assess things as they go into 2026. I would imagine that by the end of 2026, we'll probably have an idea of what's going to happen. The reason I say that is I would imagine that Toyota don't want to make any big calls before the new regulations. They'll jump into the new regulations, then see how things are unfolding. And also, Gene Haas isn't exactly a great person to be around in terms of knowing where you're going and stuff. So I guess they just want to see that. But in terms of, I think they're already giving the simulator, right?
Yeah, they're getting a new one. Not a new one. They're getting.
But Toyota already have one. Yeah. So
no, they have a wind tunnel in Cologne.
But they also have a simulator, I think, sitting around that they're just taking. I'm fairly sure.
Is it?
Or at least they have everything kind of built. That I think what I heard is they've got a simulator in Germany, or like a
Cologne only,
or one that they can at least make for F1. I think it might have been prepared for WEC or something else, but it can be easily converted, is what I heard.
That's not a big deal. That's very basic programming stuff.
Basically the same idea, it's just change it to F1. I think they're basically shipping that to Banbury, is it, where the Haas team... Yeah. So that's something that would have taken them like a couple of years to get online, or at least a year to get online.
And money.
And a lot of money that Gene Haas doesn't want to put in.
Willing to shell.
Yeah, so I think the wind tunnel, they're going to continue for now to use the Ferrari one, but I imagine they'll switch over at some point to have like their own full wind tunnel. So that's where I think it's probably not going to have any knock-on effects straight away, but it basically allows them to have this technical partnership cut down time-wise very quickly. So instead of investing money and time in building stuff, they just basically get stuff that already exists to themselves. We'll see how it goes, though.
I think it's not going to be drastic in any which way. It's basically it's reinforcement more than anything. And look, Haas has around 200 something people.
Yeah, it's quite a small team. Yeah.
Very small team, because there are around 1,000 people in almost every other team. So that's 1/4. And they'll be finishing around 6th or 7th this season, so which is drastic achievement.
It's really good for them. Ayu Komatsu said what is accurate, which is that if everyone was performing at their best, Haas would be last. Simple as. I think that's an accurate assessment of where Haas is. And I think this partnership allows them to kind of have a little bit of a better chance than that. Realistically, if everyone's operating at the absolute maximum of what they can achieve with their facilities and so on,
Haas should be last.
Haas should be last, but they should be competing with VCarb, more or less, because it's the same kind of similar setup. Not exactly, but if they were both competing at the absolute maximum, I think what this does is allows them to kind of, if they were in that situation where they were operating at the maximum, this potentially allows them that little bit of a jump. But we'll see how it goes. For right now, it's just really stickers, isn't it? So let's see.
It's basically that. But I think I'm still a positive, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, there are always question marks when a manufacturer comes into the picture, because Toyota comes in after a lot of success in VEC. It's not like it's a... they're just... it's basically not a case of a commercial division just moving people and investing into an F1 project. It's a racing team that is basically going here. How will the two cultures collide? How will they actually mesh together? So there are a lot of things that actually, it'll... How it works out, again, there might be some benefit in terms of investment, which is basically, I think, a positive for Haas.
Yeah.
But how it truly meshes together, how the whole thing, what is the end product, I don't think we really have any idea. At least for
I
now.
I don't think either of them know at the minute. I think it's just, okay, like where are our weaknesses? Can we help each other with those weaknesses short term?
Yeah.
And let's see how we mesh together for a couple of years at a very low level, and then slowly build on that if there's the kind of want to. I think a lot of this is going to come down to if there's a 2026 recession, personally. If there's a 2026 recession or World War III, as we've discussed ourselves off the podcast, that could really upset even Audi entering F1. So I
mean, especially with the lofty goals that Mattia Binotto has set.
Yeah.
So
let's see.
Anyways, I think
there's
overall,
not really much
if you look
more
at
to say on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's still a positive, and I think it kind of shows. Probably Ocon was told about this. That's why he opted for this compared to Williams, because apparently he was also in talks with Williams and Audi. I mean, Audi, what? We'll talk about Audi. What a shit show the entire thing has been. I mean, that's basically... I
think the plus is for everyone, though, like you said, is that it means Haas is less of a joke, because it means there is that potential for growth. It now means that Alpine is out and out the biggest joke on the grid, but we'll get to that at some point over the next few weeks.
They became one earlier in the season.
But now they're officially the biggest joke,
I mean, the funniest, I think you probably won't have caught on to it. Alpine again did the whole the social media post about liking the pink or something like that, because they'll probably be running a pink themed car.
It's not pink, it's black, but anyway.
Yeah. And I think there were 5 or 6 replies on the post that said, "Where's the pink?"
Yeah.
And that should tell you everything about Alpine right now. It's
I think Haas and Alpine are going to be fighting with each other next year, which is going to be interesting. So,
I mean, I don't think we could even call it a fight. I mean, Sauber will be there as well with the hideous livery. But yes, I mean, I don't expect too much from Sauber the way Binotto. I went through that interview. I think he did it with
so explain to me, because we said we were going to talk about this. So what did he say? I haven't seen the interview.
So there were
I've been working on a documentary and literally had like blinders on, because it has to be out. It has to be out by Wednesday, and I've never turned one around this quickly. So I'm getting people texting me like, "Oh, did you see this Toyota thing?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So you're gonna have to explain to me what.
So just let's talk about that already. We'll get to the key talking points later. So when it comes to Audi, 3 main takeaways that I got. First was with Jonathan Wheatley when he joined. So he said that this is probably a good sign for Audi, that he has actually become a part of it. He also quietly hinted that this is the end of Red Bull in terms of the kind of peaks that it had. I agree with it. I agree with it in the sense that the dominance is over. Wins might still be there, as in they might win the championship still. But the dominant period where it was basically a given that Max is going to win over a weekend, I think that period is done.
I think that was ending anyway for 2025. I think it's just come early.
I think it's coming a year early.
I think we said at the start of the year, even before like the first 7 races, we were like, my prediction at least was Red Bull's going to dominate this season, but it's going to be very, very close in 2025. We've just kind of got that early. I don't know if that domination... I think he's right, but I also do think you need to preface that with, I don't think domination like that is going to exist as much in F1 anymore, apart from in the first or maybe first and second years of new regulation sets. And the reason is just because the cost cap in ATR means it's like pulling way ahead is just really difficult now. So if you get the right idea, it's not like you can pump like 400 million to get that idea at the peak straight away. So you can only pull so far ahead. And then when everyone else sees it, it's like for year 2 now they can jump on. I don't think anyone's going to make the Mercedes mistake again of just going, no, we're right, we'll keep going with this for ages. I think it's going to be first year, one team gets it correct, and by year 2, everyone's just like, fuck it, right, we're going down that path now. Like,
seems like it could be.
Yeah.
But again,
I'm not sure if I like
how
that,
the
actually. But
I mean, how the 26 regulations actually pan out, that they're still not ratified yet, isn't it?
Till the
They've
1st
not
of
been
January.
signed and approved.
Yeah, it's 1st of January they get the signed and approved ones. So they have a
Yeah,
rough
yes.
idea of them now, but I think the only thing is it's subject to change. So I would imagine the teams are like sketching out ideas. They're just not allowed
Already
to put anything
100% without a doubt.
in the wind tunnel.
I don't
and
think
stuff,
there's any doubt on that front.
I'm sure Newey already has an idea in his head. He's probably called up Aston and said, "Look, don't build anything till May. I've got it done already. I'll see you." You know. But anyway, sorry, Mattia Binotto and thing.
That's
way
going
off
to be a
topic
surprise.
there.
Yeah. Again, coming to Binotto. So the second thing was regarding the whole Lewis Hamilton signing. So Lewis Hamilton, good. Go
I've
for
got
it.
a flare of
Lewis Hamilton signing with Ferrari. I interpreted it as a dig at Charles Leclerc to an extent. People have interpreted it a bit differently, where he was questioned if Ferrari signing Lewis Hamilton was the right thing. And he said that if I was in that position, I would not have signed Lewis, because you want to back the talent that you have.
Mm-hmm.
But then he said that probably the talent that they have, they don't really have full trust in him or something on those lines. So it's probably a slight dig at Charles and...
Well, I think that's more of a dig at Ferrari than Charles, isn't it? Like, I kind of agree with him there. Like,
Yeah,
especially
I agree with
after
him that you would not pick him up.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick him.
Yeah.
No. Like, I mean, the thing is, I get why they're doing it, because, like, they don't need him right now. They had a line. I said this straight away. I was like, as much as it's exciting and I'm looking forward to it, Ferrari's problems weren't their driver lineup. Like, let's be honest here. You know, the thing is, if you're Ferrari, though, 100 million a year even is nothing to you. So you could throw that in and get this big marketing, big thing.
But
big
I don't
blip
think they
in the
looked
team.
at it that way either.
No, I don't think John Elkin did, but John Elkin's clearly a moron. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But
I think the problem with big corporate bosses is they don't really know Formula One, and that's why. And when they make decisions, they usually end up incurring
the
losses.
problem is it's very obvious why board control doesn't work in F1, which is that F1 is always a long-term project, and boards think in 3-month terms. So when a board is hiring Lewis Hamilton, they're just thinking, oh, this is going to be a huge thing for us right now to jump on. They're thinking in 3 months. They don't care about how it actually goes in 2025. They're just going, this will sound really good for the next couple of months. So let's do it. I agree with Mattia there. I think Ferrari doesn't have full faith in Leclerc, and I think that's a mistake. I really think it's a mistake if they don't.
Do you think Ferrari doesn't have full faith in Leclerc, or Fred Vasseur doesn't have full faith in Leclerc?
I think Fred Vasseur does have full faith in him personally. I think Fred Vasseur knows what he can deliver. But I once again stand by the same thing, which is I think when you like Fred Vasseur. Well, no, I think Fred Vasseur probably has bigger issues than the drivers anyway. So I realistically think it wasn't Fred's decision. I'm sure he was probably annoyed that it wasn't his decision. But on the same time, like, if he's swapping a Lewis Hamilton for a Sainz, it's kind of like, all right, well, fine. That way, like, they'll both deliver really, really well. Lewis Hamilton might deliver better than Sainz, or he might not. He probably will. I just want to piss off a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans right now, so I'm going to go, I'm not sure if he will or not. Comment below if you're angry. But yeah, I don't think the problem is the drivers, so who cares?
Looking at Toto and the kind of hate mails he's received this season, do you think Fred Vasseur would have second thoughts with the kind of nonsense that has been going on? Because look, what my takeaway was when I actually saw the comment, my initial thought was, I think Binotto is correct. He's correct on one side that you have the talent in place. Now what you've done is you put two strong talents in the same car. If next season the Ferrari is a title contending car, these two drivers are going to take points off each other at some stage.
I think he's right there.
Does it happen? Yeah.
And also, I think he's correct there. And also, Ferrari's never really done that. That's not been a Ferrari's always had a basic number one driver, and the only
did in 7 and 8.
Yeah,
where
I
it
guess
was only after half a season where in 7 the priorities changed to Kimi. In 8 the priorities changed to Felipe.
Shimase,
So,
yeah. I guess, and like
it worked.
my point is, usually it's more the young driver and the number one, or a number one and number two, depending, throughout their history. It's very rare that they've had two strong number ones. It's not really a big thing that they do.
True.
You're right. True. 2007, 2008. It's just I don't rate Massa that highly because he couldn't beat Lewis Hamilton in 2008. You know that way. So, sorry, I'm just trying to wind up the comments right now. That's all I'm doing. I just think it's not that big. The thing is, though, I have been thinking about this.
Let's assume first 6 races, Charles outqualifies Lewis in all 6 races.
The hate mail and so on.
It's not only the hate mail, it's consistently answering the Sky Sports agenda questions where why is Lewis not doing well? What is the issue with the car?
Do you know what is the issue?
How can you make it better for Lewis? Lewis, this, that. Fucking hell.
I do think, though, that Toto is a lot more concerned about answering those questions. I don't know if Fred Vasseur is going to give a shit.
He will be.
But you know what Fred's like? You know, Fred's just going to laugh at them.
Relationship with Lewis as well, so he will not try to ridicule him in any which way.
No, I don't think he'll ridicule them, but I think he'll just laugh at the press. Like, he's constantly just laughing at the press.
Yeah,
so
once, twice. I mean,
I'm sure he's prepared for it.
I still laugh at this thing where when the Adrian Newey announcement came. So as soon as the Newey announcement was coming,
he's washed. Newey's never been that good.
No, not that. The HP, the High Performance Podcast, the Newey episode came out at the very same time, and in the podcast, Newey says that. And Newey specifically said that the Sky Sports publication or whatever, the editorial is very, very nationalistic. And then you have Craig Slater. He's sitting in the press conference. He's given the first question, and he asks why you did not go to Ferrari to team up with Lewis. That's the first question. Then he had a separate scrum again. It was Newey and Craig Slater, and he asked the same fucking question again. It's like, buddy, you have 2 questions. I mean, think of something else. It cannot be entirely Lewis.
I just wonder, though, I think the thing that, like, for example, I don't think Fred Vasseur is trolling through Twitter to see what people are talking about, for example. So I do think
Toto is either.
Well, Toto seems to be reading letters a lot more than anyone else, and checking. And Toto seems to take it to heart a lot more than a lot of the other team principals do. I don't think, Horner seems to just... Horner only gets involved when he feels like he can throw something back in someone's face. Until then, he kind of just says, the press says a lot of shit, and he does that.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, I do see your point, but I also think that, we talk about it over and over again, but realistically for Fred, it's like a couple of times a weekend. It's a very small portion of what he's actually working on. So I don't know if... Maybe it seems worse for us because we're reporting on it and talking about it. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I just don't see Fred caring. I see Fred using it as a way to wind them all up a lot. It's like, oh, of course you picked the English guy. I think he'll just wind them up a lot, which would be fun. It's
going to be very... Either way, it's going to be fun. I don't know how long Lewis lasts at Ferrari. 1 year, 2 years. I think 2 years is the minimum. I think 2 years are going to be something very interesting as a spectator, as a neutral looks and observes everything from a distance, because there are going to be a lot of Charles Leclerc haters that are going to pop up out of the woodwork. There are going to be a lot of Ferrari haters that are going to have a lot of conspiracy theories.
Well, you're gonna right now. You've got a lot of people who are bigging up Leclerc as one of the best drivers on the grid, and the reason they're doing that is because obviously if Hamilton beats him, it makes him look better. But you do know straight away,
and because both are friendly right now.
Yeah, right now. But if it does turn into a situation where Charles is, consistently just destroying Hamilton throughout the whole season, It's not going to be because Charles is a good driver. It's going to be because Ferrari is favouring Charles. And it's just, I've kind of just gotten to the point now where I'm like, it's just funny to make fun of because it's so obvious. Like, it's like the Russell thing this year. Yeah, it's like Russell this year. It's like basically everyone saying Russell is good, not great. He's bottles it all the time. And it's like, well, then obviously by that logic, Hamilton's not brilliant anymore. Which, as I said on the podcast with Baxter, I was like, that's obvious bullshit. It's like, you can just say both of them are brilliant. Like
that's something that I hate about fans. And even, I think it happened today only, there was a Max Verstappen fan. I commented somewhere, I think Marco had something to say about Lando, and I said that if McLaren still has a faster car and Red Bull does not improve, it's trouble for Max.
Yeah.
And there were 15 comments that said, in the last 10 races or 12 races since Miami, McLaren has always been the faster car.
Yeah.
And I literally pointed out Canada, Imola, Austria, Spa. That's 4 races.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? At Canada, McLaren was faster apparently. Apparently, it was faster in Imola. Apparently, it was faster in Austria. And
the thing is, up until...
And the thing is, you can see from... No, that was Max's brilliance. And then why are we even fighting? What's the point of argument?
I've talked about this as well. It's the same thing with, like, Piastri is clearly already better than Norris. And as I said, I'm like, right, let's look at the last 4 races. In 2 of those, Norris has beat him by 40 seconds. And if Piastri was in second, it would be one thing, but he's not. He's in third and fourth. Yeah. So then it's like the 2 races where Piastri was ahead, it's immediately like, oh, look, he's much better. And it's like, look, this is just selective. You're just picking the things. You can't just say the simple fact is Norris is slightly better than Piastri still in a few different areas. They're both performing brilliantly. And Norris is making too many mistakes for a title championship contender at the minute. But it doesn't make him any less of a brilliant driver. But this is the thing. It's like basically all these fans, they basically take it as if one driver's great, it means my driver's shit. And it's like, no, that's not the way. Both drivers can be brilliant. And
I think ultimately, even if we sit down and we talk about it, we would say that Max is a better driver than Lando. But that does not mean Lando is a shit driver. It means Lando is just not as brilliant as Max, and probably no one is.
Max is probably the best driver since Schumacher, which I know pisses off a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans when I say that.
There's no probably.
This is like someone telling me Kimi Räikkönen's not as good as Schumacher. I'm like, okay. That doesn't mean Kimi Räikkönen wasn't an absolutely spectacular driver.
Exactly.
Like, what you're saying to me is like, oh, he's not the absolute best who's ever been on the grid, like in modern F1.
No one is. That's
brilliant. It's just such a, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Coming back to the topic.
Yes, because we just went way off there. Yeah.
Yeah. The third thing that Binotto said, and this one takes the cake for me because he said, look, actually was questioned, what is the timeline that Audi is working on? When do you expect Audi to be a championship winning team in Formula 1?
Oh, God.
My guy said that, look, it took Mercedes around 5 to 6 years to do this, to actually achieve that thing. I joined Ferrari in 1993, and by 1999 we won the first championship. So since I've joined the team in 2024, by 2030, I expect the team to win.
I'm sure Audi was really happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like his.
Would you be even part of the team in 2030? Have you told about this grand plan of yours to Audi?
I would say one thing. I actually like that response because I think it's a reasonable, actual, proper response. That, like, it's not a marketing response, but if you ask like any team. Like Red Bull, for example, really fast-tracked it quite a bit. Like they were very quick. But they also inherited
but they also took 5 years, right? 2005
well, 2006 was it? The end of 2005 they took over, was it? Or 2006?
At the end of 2004 they took over.
You're right, yeah, they took over. But yeah, and also Jaguar Ford had invested quite a bit already. So there's that too.
Yeah, but
Sauber hadn't invested in quite a while. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. That took them 5 years. So like, it's a reasonable response. So
it is. But on the other hand, BMW Sauber was challenging for the title in the 3rd year.
Will Audi be happy about that response? No. Is it?
Would any driver even consider going to Audi or Sauber in 2025 if this is the response they've heard? No.
If you're driving for Haas, probably, yeah.
I would still not. Why would they?
Like, yeah, I get what you mean. But then at the same time, like, I mean...
Okay, look, short term, let's make a basic
What happens if you say, like,
where
2027, and in 2027 you're 7th in the championship? Then you just look like a moron, you get fired. So I think his response is correct.
He will be 7th on a good day.
Yeah.
That's how far back I think Audi will be. And I did not have this expectation when Audi in 2022 had already planned a lot of things way up front, got Andreas Seidel on board, everything was in place, but then those fuckers did not put in the money.
Yeah.
They did not give the resources, they did not do anything, and the whole thing was on standby until 2024 when they woke up that they only have one more year left. Look, 2025, Sauber is going to be at the back of the grid.
Yep.
2026 will be the new team with Audi having its own power unit. And I don't expect it to be strong.
They're going to win the championship that year. Yeah. It's going to be Hülkenberg and Alonso in a title fight. Hülkenberg's going to win by 1 point and Alonso's going to retire. Obviously.
It's not going to happen. Audi is going to be last once again in 2026. I'm telling you. The reason is, I'll tell you why. Williams is going to improve a lot. Whatever I've seen, whatever I've heard from James Voss, who's his anyone watching,
Williams is
watch his interview at Beyond the Grid, recent interview. The man is very confident and he's made it clear there is no dearth of resources. We just have to ramp things up, and he's ramping things up at a fast pace. He's already made it. He's made it clear. He said, even, and I think it's actually funny when he says these things. He said that in 2025, if after the first 3 races we are leading both the championships. Williams is talking about this. That's the hypothetical concept that he came up with himself in the interview. Yeah. That if we are leading both the championships, we'll still give it up because we want to focus on 2026.
Yeah.
Like, James, if you're leading the championship after 3 races, Williams, Dorilton Capital is going to give you 25% of the shares of the company.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're doing that.
I don't know. I don't think they'll be last in 2026 personally, because
who do you think they beat?
I think they beat Haas personally.
I don't think they beat Haas.
I do. I think
I'll
honestly.
I'll tell you why. Because 50% of Haas is going to be Ferrari, and Ferrari is not going to be shabby in 2026.
Sure. Okay. Sure. But I think also you got to keep
50% of that.
Yeah, but the aero is just you're talking about active aero systems on a car. Yeah. I don't think Haas is going to do that well with the Lara in that.
Of course. Yeah, but the Lara is building. It's not providing the engineering.
I just think that Audi is probably right now got 500 people we don't know about working in a bunker in Germany somewhere, coming up with designs.
You overestimate them. These guys did
those Germans
for the last
you underestimate those Germans, right? They lost a world war, and 20 years later they were dominating. Yes, right. Vorsprung-Technik. You watch those Germans, right? Those Germans they're sneaky mofos. You got to be careful with them.
That's another checkbox ticked. So,
if Hitler had just gone south in the winter, anyway. I don't think they'll be last because, Alpine exist.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So look, I think they'll be fighting. I don't think they'll be comfortably in the midfield personally, because unless something seriously changes next year, the only positive is that we are in a situation where if they ramp up efficiency and do some clever things quickly, we are in a situation where teams can't pull ahead massively like they used to with just like a massive amount of investment. That is a downside for Audi, and it's an upside because Audi is one of the few companies that could have just pumped in like $1 billion. But
yeah, fine. Guess how many employees are there in Sauber at Hinwil right now?
20, 30, 40, 50, I don't know. 500.
Around 400, 450.
Yeah, okay.
Not even a top team, just take an Alpine. Alpine has around 900 people right now.
Sure, but they're all eating baguettes and on strike most of the time, so that doesn't really count, This is just...
They might not be there in Silverstone, right?
Those are French workers. So. A French worker is basically half of a German worker. That's
true.
You heard that? If you're
But
French,
by the way,
I mean
by
that.
the way, they are Swiss. The ones that are there
Exactly.
now.
So they're going to be
in Sauber
super
right now.
efficient. They're going to be super efficient. It's going
And
to be fun.
very neutral.
And they've
So,
got an
yeah.
Italian coming in to kind of shake his hand about and make everything fine. And
He's
then
Swiss,
Jonathan,
by the way. He's not
Is he?
Italian.
maybe that's why it didn't work. then.
Maybe that's why I took the job, by the way.
Yeah.
No one else was willing to.
I don't think they'll be last, but I do agree. I don't expect them to be. If they're in the midfield in 2026, I'll be quietly impressed.
If they finish P6, I'm telling you, the best case scenario, the perfectly best case scenario is they finish
P6.
P6 in the championship.
Yeah.
Because top 5 is sealed. The current
There's no
top
way.
5 is going
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
top 5 then. The order might change.
Unless the engine has more input than I'm expecting it to, yes. Because if the engine does actually make a bigger difference than I'm expecting it to, then there's always the outside chance that Audi get everything absolutely perfect and it makes a huge difference. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't think that's going to be the case.
I think
because in that case, it could be
very-
Red Bull's powertrain division, you know?
Yeah.
But,
I think that's where, that's the biggest disappointment when it comes to the whole thing, right? Audi had the best possible launch pad that any team could offer. Three plus years of work they could have put into Sauber, and by now Sauber could have been a strong midfield team. They've gone from being, I think, 5th or 6th in the championship to last.
yeah.
All down to Audi.
Well, unless like, I kind of thought that perhaps they were just putting all of the 3 years into a focus on 2026 and not wasting resources. But you know what made me not think that was obviously not the case?
Riding Seidel.
Yeah. Because that made me think they've looked at it and gone, this isn't working. As opposed to, we have a clear plan, like a 3-year plan where, you know, if Seidel was still there, I'd be saying maybe they're cooking something.
Yeah.
Seidel going tells me whatever they were cooking has gone off and been thrown in the bin. So,
And they picked up Mattia Binotto.
I think it's a good choice. I genuinely
As
think
an
it's a good
engineer, as a technician, yes, but not as a manager.
choice. Sure, but you've got Jonathan Wheatley to run the team, the day-to-day of the team. As a person to bring the technical side together, I genuinely, like, if Ferrari had been smart and had played
By
things...
the way, Binotto is Wheatley's boss. So
Yeah, of course. But I mean, he's bringing like the Audi side together with Wheatley, essentially. You know what I mean? He's like the kind of in-between of the two. Like, obviously he's his boss, but he's kind of that link between the two. And I think that's a good decision.
I don't think even they know right now how they're going to do this.
Probably not. But I think if Ferrari had been smart, if Ferrari had been really smart and they had have just opened their checkbook up, instead of spending 100 million on Lewis Hamilton, what Ferrari realistically should have done, what they should have done was offered a shit ton of money to Mattia and Fred and said, look, Mattia, this isn't working, but clearly you've done something right with the technical team. So can you be the CTO and we'll make Fred the team principal? That gets all of the issues off your...
Do you think
it would have been a smart move, I think.
It would have been the best
strengths.
move, and I think Mattia was offered something on those lines. I don't think he took it.
Maybe he didn't
and
want
I can understand because that would have been a demotion. Right?
Yeah, but if they had pulled that off, Fred running the day-to-day, dealing with the media and drivers and the on-track, genius, and then you have Mattia overlooking all of the technical stuff, like, I think that would have been a brilliant setup.
That's the biggest mistake they made, honestly.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake was letting Mattia take over the managerial bit. As a technician, as an engineer, perfect. Keep him there, utilize him.
Which is why I think the Audi decision is actually really good, because you're keeping him away from that one last bit, which is he's staying away from the media, the drivers, the on-track stuff. And Jonathan Wheatley knows how to deal with that after being under Horner for so long. So I think it could be a really good setup. The question is
AD 2021 with Michael
of course,
Masi.
I really think when they get chief strategist Masi in to Audi, that's going to be the turnaround point. You know,
something might happen.
Yeah,
anyway,
and Latifi as a
lot
reserve.
of talk about these guys. Now let's look forward to the last 6 races of the season.
Yes.
So for this one, what we are going to do is we're basically taking a look at some of the key storylines as we look at the last 25% of. I did not even think about it. There's still 25% of the season left. By the way,
such a long season.
Yeah.
So what is
6 races?
We've got 2 triple headers now, have we?
Yeah.
Crazy. So
it's
we've
basically
had
2 triple headers, which are, I think there's a gap of 2 weeks in between. something like that.
Yeah, so we've had no F1 for 4 weeks and then there's 2 triple headers. That just doesn't make any sense at all.
It makes no sense, and they're basically jumping countries, right, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They're basically going US, Mexico, Brazil.
So, yeah, and then Las Vegas,
It's
Qatar,
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi, yeah.
They're also jumping continents, right?
Mm-hmm.
From Mexico to Brazil will be a different continent.
Yeah. It's North America and South America.
Perfect.
Don't
The-
tell
a
Helmut
diff-
Marko that, though.
Yeah. Thankfully for him. Anyways, so first of all, I think the first thing that I actually wanted to talk about was, what do you think? By the way, Austin will have Red Bull having the much
Austin
talked about
upgrade.
upgrade.
Yeah. They've already
What's the
bought
deal is-
half of it, though, haven't they? They weren't
No,
expected
they
to. I
haven't.
think
No,
they
they haven't.
No?
It was just a
No.
makeshift thing that was there in the hybrid floor, whatever it was, that was there
okay,
in, I think it
okay.
was in Singapore. Maybe a part of it was in Baku as well. I'm not entirely sure, but it was there
Yeah.
in Singapore. So this weekend they'll have the upgrade in place.
On top of that, they've flattened out the track, so there's less bumps. So that's going to really help as well.
Yeah, but that's specifically for this race. But I'm talking about in general.
No, I know. I just mean, they could look better
Yeah.
this weekend than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
because last time around it was very competitive. The Max basically scraped through. But keeping that aside, what is the realistic expectation that you can actually have from this upgrade? Because a lot is being talked about. According to Marco, this could make them super competitive, but why listen to Marco anyways?
Well,
Anything
I mean,
with Red
there
Bull.
is the other side, which is, I mean, we've seen enough issues with upgrades actually being downgrades this year. So, do we know if McLaren are bringing an upgrade this
Yeah.
weekend? They
Yeah.
are they? See,
McLaren
that's
is
the
bringing,
problem for me.
Ferrari is bringing, Mercedes is bringing. All of them. And
Yeah.
even the other minions.
See, this is the real issue for me, which is I genuinely, throughout the entire season, have thought that there's a fundamental issue with Red Bull's platform, with their actual platform. So I think there's only so much aero upgrades you can do to that before you need like a chassis change into the next season. And that's why I'd be a bit concerned if I were Red Bull that even if you fix your issues, is it going to fix the balance issues more so than add performance? In which case, the trouble there is, while that's going to make Max more competitive, because the balance will feel better and he'll extract the most out of it, you've got McLaren who could be just layering on more performance again on a car that is already balanced clearly much better than the Red Bull, underneath at
Every
the
team.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, than every team, yeah. So I would say if they fix the balance, it's probably going to win Max the championship, because it will mean that even if Norris has a really, really good day, Max will still be skulking around in second or third.
No, keep that bit aside. Just specifically in
Yeah.
terms of
Performance?
because Red Bull in the last 4 races it was a second since summer break. It was second fastest in Zandvoort,
Yeah.
4th in Monza.
Well, I think
I'd
they
say-
figured out their issues, basically.
There was a lot of experimentation and stuff going on at that time.
So I think they figured out their issues. But as I said, I think the problem is, I think that the
The
only
gap at the
fix they
front
can
is too
do...
big.
Well, yeah, but I think the only fix they can do right now is for balance. I think they've probably realized that they tried to add performance and that upset the balance. So what they need to do now is have some sort of compromise to get the balance in place so that Max can extract the most and not have really weird issues that Max was having. But it's not going to add that much performance. I do think where it's going to put them is, I think it's probably going to put them ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes comfortably again for the rest of the season. But I don't think it's going to put them ahead of McLaren. I think McLaren have kind of figured things out. And I think for Red Bull to get ahead of McLaren substantially is going to be into the next season, if they're going to do it at all. So I think it's going to have Max kind of ahead of... I say Max because I'm not expecting Checo to be anywhere. I think it's going to have Max ahead of the Ferrari and Mercedes, unless Ferrari and
Of
Mercedes
course,
have
I'm a
pulled
Perez fan, isn't it?
Yeah, as a Perez fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's gonna. I think the good news for us as fans though is, even if McLaren have made another step, it's within a tenth or two. These teams aren't like pulling away massively anymore. I think those big jumps
it's very
are
hard
done.
to expect that.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a fun title fight to the end. But we'll talk about that in a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm
Sorry about
I'm
my
in
flu,
two
by the
minds when
way.
it comes to the whole thing because again, Marco has come out and said a lot of things, and
Yeah, but Marco always has one
I
eye
don't
off
think
the
anyone
ball.
tells him anything anymore. I'll be honest, at Red Bull,
Yeah.
the only conversation he has is with the media guys, because whatever he's said until now in these 3 4 weeks, nothing has made sense.
I've said it all
Honestly,
year.
nothing
I've
has
said
made sense.
Helmut Marko. Basically, Horner has said, "Yeah, that's fine. He can keep his job. I'm not going to argue with him anymore." But he
Yeah,
basically is just. It's like that. It's like when you like hand in your notice at work and everyone just stops talking to you. Maybe that's just
yeah,
me. No one talks to me anyway. But yeah, that 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 seems to be where Helmut Marko is. I think
yeah,
he's on a soft retirement run now, and that's basically it. I think personally.
and yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And unless the upgrade works, and I think even if the upgrade works, I don't expect Red Bull to overhaul McLaren. I think that would be a bit too
At
ambitious.
at best, they're going to be on par with them anyway. I think
If they are
if they're on
at
par,
par
that's
with
huge. That's
McLaren, that's
huge.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah, but I
because
think there's a
that means the
fundamental issue with the
championship is done.
platform.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that means the
yeah,
championship is done. It's over. But if they are not at par with Red Bull, with McLaren, I think the championship is still on, because there's
it depends what
look, Ferrari
McLaren bring
has
as
its
well,
peaks.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these teams. Again, it's just basically one DNF away.
If
One
well that
race.
yeah that, but also if like do we finish off what you're saying and then we'll talk about the title. But yeah,
Yeah, because what I think is, I think the last 6 races plus whatever sprints, almost every time Max is going to start the race in the midfield.
yeah,
And when you're doing that, the probability of having a first lap, I mean, apparently we don't get safety cars anymore. Everyone is
yeah.
so
They've just retired the safety car this year.
basically.
Yeah,
And I think if he's continually going to start the races at that very point, and then there are races where a Mercedes is going to peak. I think Austin and Mexico are 2 races where you can expect
yeah,
Mercedes to do well.
yeah,
These are probably the races where things might become a bit tough in terms of the points that Lando takes away. I think
yeah.
Austin is a big opportunity for him. Maybe a few other races. When that happens, the pressure is starting. It will start to ramp up. So again, just realistically, I don't expect Red Bull to just catch up with McLaren out of the blue, one upgrade and boom, everything is gone. You just don't do that in Formula One
Mhm.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it is still going to make things a bit more palatable for Max in terms of he's not struggling with the car all the time. And maybe
That's what I
that would
think.
give
Yeah,
him a better
I think
foundation to
that's what they've
actually.
been focused on. I think they've
Yeah,
realized that look, performance-wise, we can't layer anything else onto this car the way it is. But if we can fix the balance, then that's essentially the same as adding performance. Because if Max is
yeah,
comfortable, at the very least, he'll be extracting a limit all the time.
yeah,
So if they can do that, then that's going to be really difficult for McLaren. Um,
yeah. Same here, same here. I
that
feel so
said,
too.
if they give McLaren another tenth, like if McLaren come with an upgrade and Red Bull haven't fixed it, and McLaren even get another tenth, I would say, over the rest of the teams, that's going to mean that, like, I think Max is going to need to be perfect for the rest of the season then, because
So
that's
does
going to put
Lando,
a
right?
sure, yeah, sure, but I think Max is going to need to be perfect there because if he gets Lando operating where Lando kind of, if he gets the Singapore Lando or
Yeah.
the Zandvoort Lando for the rest of the season, which is a big ask from Lando, but if we're saying both of them operate at their absolute peak and McLaren gets another tenth, then that could be that
Why?
then. Because, like, Norris
What's the gap
operating at his
between
peak,
P1 and P3 in a sprint?
it's only 2 points, isn't it? So,
Okay, it's 10, 9, 8. That's how it goes,
no,
right?
it's 8-7-1.
Or
It's
top
only
8.
8. Yeah. So it's just
Oh,
one
okay,
point per
okay, okay.
position.
I I end up
At the
confusing
moment,
it with the
Lando would
MotoGP
need
thing.
to. At the moment, Lando would need to basically. He's 8.4 points off per race,
8.6, yeah. It
but that's
basically
if you
needs
don't
8.7
include the
points per
sprints.
race. Yeah.
If you don't include the sprints, so say including the sprints, it's like 8 or 7.5 points, something like that, right? So
Yeah,
realistically, he needs
basically
Max
race
to.
weekend. It's easier to
Yes,
take race weekend into account. So in a race weekend, he has to outscore Max by roughly 9 points. That's what he needs to
more or
keep in
less.
mind,
Yeah.
more or
So
less,
yeah,
right? And if there's one DNF from Max, just
that could.
one,
Yeah.
catastrophic. And And apparently there might be a case of him taking another power unit penalty. So they were talking about it. If
Maybe.
that happens,
Yeah. If that happens on the Mercedes and McLaren don't have to take a new Mercedes power unit, then that could make a huge difference.
yeah,
I think, look, it depends. If the balance is back and Max comes back and he's like second or third every race weekend, then the title's really over because he can just hold on to it. And in that case, Norris needs to win every single race, which I don't know if that's happening. Like, I mean,
I don't think so.
Is Norris capable of doing that? Sure. But is McLaren capable of doing it? And
I think there are races like Las Vegas where Ferrari is going to be strong. Then Abu Dhabi is a race where Leclerc tends to do well.
And also, as good as Norris peaks
Mexico is basically a Max Verstappen track. He's done very well.
But also, there's only 2 drivers over the past 12 years that have ever gone on a run like that, and one of those is Max, and the other one's Vettel. Drivers don't go on these massive runs. Yeah. So
I think Lewis's maximum is 4 or 5 race win streak. That's it.
So it's not
despite
normal.
having a Bottas as a teammate, so it speaks a lot.
So it depends what Norris we get, and it depends on them. But if the McLaren comes back as the clear fastest, the only way that they're going to win this is, 1, they need to win every race, but 2, they basically need to tell Oscar to back up Norris for the final 6 races, because if Oscar can get in the middle of Norris and Max every weekend and Norris wins every weekend, then that's it. Game over, even without a DNF. But I don't know. I think Max may have done enough already to hold off the championship. So
yeah, true.
Now, if Red Bull come in with
we've still not had Qatar.
No. So
that is also a McLaren track. That is an out-and-out McLaren track.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing. If McLaren do come with an upgrade that works, and Red Bull come with an upgrade that doesn't,
if they don't, they are so far ahead.
If Red Bull then come
ahead, right?
If Red Bull come with an upgrade that hasn't fixed the balance, right? And Singapore was a bit of an outlier, let's say, and Max is back to, 3rd, 4th, 5th every race weekend. That could be the big change, because then he doesn't need to win every weekend. He just needs to be kind of ahead of Max every weekend, because the points difference,
is big. So there's a lot of things that could happen here.
It's an interesting season ahead, I think.
Yeah. But I think still, even if we keep that aside, even if we assume that the Red Bull upgrade works, even in that case, don't expect it to overhaul McLaren. At least not in one go.
No, but I don't think they need to, and I think that's why they're probably focused on balance, because they know that all they need to do is give Max a car where Max can bring it home kind of on the podium every weekend, and that's it. That's enough. If he can be ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes in a car that he's comfortable in, then
I think that's why Austin is going to be a very critical weekend, because Mercedes will be better here compared to the previous tracks, and Lewis is mega at Austin.
Yeah.
So
if the McLaren is clear, there you go. If the McLaren's clearly the fastest, right, and Oscar and McLaren do what they need to do, which is just back Norris, whatever fans think about that, that's what McLaren need to do if they want a drivers' championship, because it's the only option, the only viable option to win one. If McLaren do that and you get a Norris Oscar 1-2, and then you get Lewis in 3rd, on the podium ahead of Max.
Max is 4th.
Then that is that's a 13-point swing. If you have a few weekends like that, then that changes everything. And then one DNF, and all of a sudden, boom! It could be over.
It's gone.
The problem is Max has probably done enough to the point of where there is so many. This needs to happen, and then this needs to happen, and then this needs to happen. Whereas all Max needs to do is just maximize each weekend. So Max has probably done enough to bring this one home. But this season has been anything but predictable. So who knows?
And I think a lot of answers will be there in Austin. A lot of things will be answered, because if somehow the upgrade does not work, first of all, Max would be furious. And when Max is furious, he fucks up. He fucked up at Hungary. He has one of those weekends where he does not want to be there.
Although I do think that, to give Max a bit of praise here, since then he's kind of realised, even when he's been finishing 4th and 5th. Yeah, so even when he's been finishing fourth or fifth, he's kind of more focused. The thing will be, the test of that will be, if he's finishing fourth or fifth and Lando's finishing first, that's when we'll see the test of Max, because realistically, like when he's finishing
we'll
fifth,
see a return of
Max
Mad Max in that case.
Because like in Baku, when he's finishing fifth but Lando's finishing fourth, it's kind of, that's fine. Like it's 3 points, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's a 13, 14 point swing, I think we'll see a difference then. Yeah.
Coming to the second driver now, the second topic. The second Red Bull driver. Look, there has been a lot. Again, the great Helmut Marko, he came up and said that Red Bull is probably going to choose between either of the two RB drivers. Now, either of the two RB drivers are Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda.
They're not picking
either of
Yuki.
the two, and apparently, according to him, Sergio Perez is out from 2025.
Who said
That's
this?
what he meant. Helmut Marko.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but again, we have to take Helmut Marko. Helmut Marko doesn't know where South America is, so I'm not going to count on him to tell me where things are going.
Yeah. So when it comes to him, ultimately, look, there are 4 options. There's a Daniel Ricciardo still. He's still there, even though fans hate the fact. I think he'll still be in contention. Then there's a Yuki, there's a Liam, and there's Checo Perez.
Yeah.
There are 6 races left. How do you think the cookie crumbles, and ultimately who will be the one who will be teaming up with Max in 2025?
Well, so to touch on Perez and actually go back on what I said, I do kind of agree with Helmut Marko that I don't think Perez is there next year full stop anyway, because I think that Red Bull, after the last 3 to 4 years, have seen this is just the same thing happening over and over again. And when the going's getting tough now, where they can't rely on a Constructors Championship because of Max alone, and they're going into 2026, I think Horner himself has probably realised, I not only could lose the Constructors for 2026, I could lose Max. So I need to start planning not only the second seat, but kind of ramping up a replacement for Max in the future. So I think those wheels have to turn. So I think Checo is gone. As for the replacement, I think it's all on Lawson, because I think Yuki's not going in, right? And
I don't think he is.
As much as I was a big proponent up until the kind of maybe a few races ago that Yuki is really performing really well, the problem is I don't think Ricciardo probably did enough to go into the Red Bull seat. Yeah. And if Ricciardo hasn't done enough, then Yuki's not really done enough either, because Yuki and Ricciardo for the last 6 or 7 races have more or less been... Yeah. So, like, if Yuki was absolutely destroying Ricciardo for the entire season, it would be like, okay, fair enough, he deserves a choice or chance. So it really comes down to Lawson, doesn't it? This is why I don't think there'll be any switch from now until the end of the season. I don't think it makes sense anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that if Lawson is absolutely categorically destroying Yuki, then there's your answer. He goes straight into that seat. It makes sense, right? You swap him over. If Lawson comes in and doesn't outright beat Yuki over the rest of the season, that's a more difficult decision. And I could genuinely, in that situation, see them go, right, we've got Yuki, Lawson, and Ricciardo all performing roughly the same. Ricciardo's the known quantity. Let's give him a season. That's where I could see that crazy decision happening. If Lawson comes in and completely, not even destroys Yuki, but is just comfortably ahead of Yuki every weekend, doesn't
basically
need to be
6 weekends is 4-2 in favor of Lawson. He gets the nod.
Yes, or even I would say it'd have to be 5-1. 4-2 is probably still cutting it too close. But if it's kind of 5-1 or 6-0, forget about qualifying. Qualifying is one thing.
If it's 6-0, it's done. I mean, if it's 6-0, because he'll be coming in without any.
If it's 3-3, I think Ricciardo's talking.
Sorry?
If it's 3-3, I think Ricciardo could potentially be called for a seat, basically. Yeah. You're right. If it's 6-0, it's done. It's over.
Yeah, that's over.
Lawson gets the seat.
I think somewhat similar. And I think there's a reason why Daniel Ricciardo has not announced his retirement from Formula 1 until now. And the reason is very simple. He's been told, we'll see out the season, we'll see how things actually pan out. I don't think Sergio Perez shows enough. I don't think he has shown enough until now. The only race where he was actually performing, he ended up crashing. And okay, it's a racing incident, but still, no result to show. So that's still against.
Look, even if he finished second in that race, then he did a terrible weekend in Singapore. Like,
Which
the
was
problem
crap.
I have is just like, as much as I love Sergio Perez and I want to see him stay on the grid, I just Jason, as Sai always calls me, Jason, I'm a Perez fan. I say, he hasn't done enough over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think like, if you're Horner looking at this, surely you have to think to yourself, look, it doesn't really matter. Even if he wins the next 6 races, he hasn't done enough over the last 3 years.
Look, if he wins
the next 6 races, fine. But
even if he wins one of those 6 races, he'll get the seat. I doubt he gets anything more than a podium. And that's me being very optimistic and pro Checo.
I think even if he wins a race, it's the wrong decision. Personally,
it is the wrong decision. I think
because
it's a very simple
every
thing.
single year
you
it's
do
been
the same
this
thing,
roller coaster.
you get the same result. It's just that.
It's been a roller coaster for every year, where it's high peaks and then down, high peak down, high peak down, and that's just not. That's fine when Max is like destroying the championship.
Yeah.
But when it's this close and next year is going to be even closer, you don't want someone who's beating Max, but you want someone who can back up Max every weekend.
You don't want a liability. That's the whole bit.
I mean, what happens though if all three, like, do they give Ricciardo the seat, or do they genuinely think to themselves, right, we need to maybe call a Sainz here or an Albon back, or figure some way to get someone out of contract? I wonder. Because potentially
I don't think they're going with
situation.
the Sainz, because if they wanted to go with the Sainz, they would have gone with him already.
With the Sainz.
Yeah. I'm not sure they'll go with an Albon, especially with the way Franco Colapinto has performed against him.
Yeah.
Maybe Franco Colapinto gets the nod.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And that would actually send James Walls in a fit of rage, so maybe, yeah. But I don't think he'll stop him. If Red Bull comes calling, it's not only about being smart, he also understands that.
There is the problem though with what I said about Ricciardo moving up, which is if you've got those three there, the problem with moving Ricciardo up long term, I don't know if Horner will think about it this way.
It's not a long term thing. What's going to happen is either
you have to remove one from the second seat. Then I think is the problem.
What?
Because if you're bringing Ricciardo into Red Bull, say that scenario works out and you do bring him back, right? The problem with bringing Ricciardo up is it doesn't free up a seat to try another junior in the back unless you drop Lawson. So do you think in that situation, if Lawson doesn't perform for the next 6 races...
next season there won't be... Isaac Hadjar is mostly going to Super Formula, right? So there's no one waiting in the wings.
That's true, yeah. So you kind of... Yeah. So you're kind of screwed. Yeah.
I think there are two scenarios. First is if Lawson beats... I think it's not even 5-1. I think if he beats Yuki 4-2. Because look, we have to take things into context. He's coming into Austin without any pre-season test or any kind of experience in the car.
And if he's Yuki's been in the car for the whole season, yeah.
Yeah. So if even in those scenario, Lawson is able to beat Yuki, he will get the nod.
Yeah.
Will he beat him or not is a different...
I think he will personally, but we'll see.
I don't know. I don't know. I've underestimated Yuki a bit too much.
I have too, but I also I reckon part of Yuki's problem over the last few races as well has been the fact that like he was comfortably beating Ricciardo for half a season, right? And still there's no conversation of, all right, we'll consider you for next year. I wonder if Yuki's kind of like, this is pointless, like, like maybe some of the motivation is gone. Maybe. Which would be fair. Like if you're in that situation where you're like, I've done everything I can possibly do for 3 years now, and I'm not even being considered for that seat. Like what more do I have to do here? Like
I agree with you. But the thing is, Yuki still is a Formula 1 driver, and once the Red Bull door shuts, he will not be a Formula 1 driver. He's not.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else no other place for him. Right?
Haas maybe if Toyota were the Japanese driver.
He's a Honda. He's a Honda.
That's the
driver,
problem.
Right? So,
as Hank said in the comments, Honda and Toyota.
Yeah, Honda and Toyota.
So I didn't realize Honda. I knew there was some rivalry there just because they were from the same country, but I didn't realize it was like a really staunch rivalry.
It's not staunch as such.
No.
It's there, but it's not like they will step on each other's shoes. It's not a case of BMW
I'll potentially need to cover. I'll need to cover this on my new channel. Well,
yeah, the rebranded channel. Yeah, it's BMW and Mercedes, right? It's not similar to that.
Yeah,
it's more. But again, Japanese people are not that violent. At least
Audi and BMW are a huge rivalry as well, right?
So they tend to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Audi and Porsche.
I don't
Audi
think
and Bugatti, Audi and Lamborghini. Audi just hates everybody. But anyway, so
I mean, it works for them, right? So maybe that's why. Anyways, coming to this thing, do you think it would be the right decision to actually promote Liam after just 6 races? I mean, it's basically 12 races overall.
Look, if he comfortably beats Yuki, then I don't see what other option you have is the problem. Like, is it the right decision? If you want to promote from within, yes. If it's the right decision in terms of like everything, like, you know, the whole picture, then no. Because there is tons of drivers that would probably jump at a Red Bull seat that would be better, that you could open the checkbook. Not tons, but there's a few.
It's not really, I mean, it's not even about that. It's about putting a young, inexperienced driver who's not even spent a year driving in the midfield.
Like, it could
putting him alongside Max Verstappen in one of the toughest cars to drive in Formula 1.
But when he shows up that Max is actually not like overrated, that'll be fun, you know? No one believes that. No one's buying that.
By the way, Lawson was dominated. Okay, but some people are not going to like this. Lawson was pretty much outclassed by Oscar Piastri. Yeah. To an extent, outperformed. Again, everyone has a lot of theories, but Logan Sargent was probably a better driver as a teammate in the F2 season they both had. So
yeah, but
who knows?
Clearly, though, Lawson is a better driver in F1 terms at the minute, though, than Logan Sargent.
That's also true.
So, you know, it just, I don't know. Like, I just don't know what other options they have. I still think there's a good chance that in December they're calling up Ricciardo for the Red Bull seat. I could still see it happening.
I think it's going to come down to either Ricciardo.
He probably doesn't deserve it, I'll point out, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, by the way, just to clarify, we don't think
I'm not saying he deserves it. I'm just saying in terms of just a pragmatic approach, balancing money and performance, you know, it depends what Lawson does, though. If Lawson absolutely destroys it, like if Lawson wins 6-0, then it's kind of like, you know,
undeniable.
Give him a chance. You know, this is the better driver. If he's 3-3 with Yuki, then I see Ricciardo getting a call straight away.
Yeah,
you know,
makes sense as well.
They bring Albon back.
Give Lawson another year. Maybe give Daniel half a season next year, and give Lawson half a year compared to Yuki. If Lawson is still comfortably beating him, and Daniel is continuing to find it hard against Max, make the switch.
This is the thing, because for Horner, I think the dream is that Ricciardo goes in and is a couple of tenths off of Max in qualifying, and then is kind of finishing behind him in the race every weekend, or, you know, a couple of weekends he's ahead or whatever. That's the dream, but I don't see it happening anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh, sorry. Jesus. Sorry, I'm allergic to Daniel Ricciardo being back on the grid, apparently.
And there are plenty of people. Apparently, friend of the channel, Peter Brook, hates him. He's like, just let it go.
He's not even here to defend himself, poor Peter. You're just calling him out. His poor channel is going to be destroyed now.
Yeah. Moving to the third thing. Okay, and again, this is something that I actually came across on social media. The last 6 races are probably the true test for Lando Norris, and I think I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
What that means is, look, he stumbled onto the fastest car on the grid in Miami. It took him some time to adapt to the entire situation, but now there's been enough time. There's been enough time for even McLaren to understand the fact that they are in with an opportunity to win both titles.
Yeah.
They've had almost a month to sit on it and understand how they're going to approach the next 6 races.
Well, if you get a Lando Norris, finish the question anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. So for me, it is if from this stage you see Lando Norris I'd ideally say the Lando Norris McLaren combination performing in the same manner as they did in the rest of the year, where there are mistakes, there are suboptimal performances. If this continues, I think it's on them. Ideally, I think this is a championship that Lando should win. 6 races, this kind of car, you give it to Max, you give it to Lewis, you give it to Alonso, you give it to Vettel. He did that against Alonso in 2013. You give it to these guys, they're going to win the championship.
Yeah.
If Lando fucks it up from here, Lando and McLaren ideally, if they fuck it up from here, I think to an extent it's on them as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's on McLaren, if Norris for the next 6 races and sprints wins them all and loses the championship by a couple of points to Max, then McLaren have a lot to answer for. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. I think it's, as we've just stated earlier, like pretty difficult for a driver to go on a run like that. But if he did that,
especially when the grid is this close.
Yeah, so in that case, McLaren would have a lot to answer for. I still think, regardless, though, if we get a Norris that we got in, I would say, like in Singapore, obviously, but if we get the Norris we got in Baku even, like he was brilliant in Baku. He was just really unfortunate with that the yellow flag. If we get that Norris for the rest of the season, I still think even in that situation, McLaren have so much to answer for this season already. Like, because I worked it out, like it's 11 points. If you forget about any of Norris's mistakes and you just factor in the mistakes from McLaren, he would be 11 points off of Max right now. Can you imagine if we were going into the last 6 races and McLaren were 11 points, or Norris was 11 points off Max? Done. Yeah, finished.
Basically done. So
2 points a weekend. Just take 1 or 2 race wins. That's it. Like done.
That's it.
Finished. Sorry, what was the question? Or was there a question?
So the question is, it's basically that now the excuses bit is done.
Yeah.
In these last 6 races, I mean, you cannot really say that we don't have the experience. We were basically caught off guard. All this is done. They have had almost a month to sit on this, prepare for the last 6 races, and even for Lando to actually map out an approach. Because look, Lando is maybe not the more naturally ruthless driver that Max or Lewis is, but he's still methodical. He will go back, he will analyze things, and then when the next time he approaches, he's much better. He did that in Zandvoort as well when it came to the overtake against Max.
Yeah.
So now he's had the time. Everything is in place.
And in fairness to Norris, I think we've seen a different Norris in the last 4 races. I think we've just seen a situation of being very, very unlucky. Like, obviously, Zandvoort, incredible, and Singapore, just dominant displays. But, like, you know, as I said, Baku was just pure, like, a lack of luck, realistically, because his qualifying pace was getting there. Like, I think he would have probably been on the front row if he had have finished that qualifying session from everything building up to it. And his race pace was incredible. I think if he finished up there on the top, he probably would have won that race fairly handily.
One not being second. I don't think Oscar would have won in that case.
I don't think so either. I think he would have... I think... Does he make that lunge on Leclerc? Maybe not, but I don't think he needs to be there, personally. I think he's ahead of Leclerc anyway before that point, personally. Maybe. Maybe.
But still, the thing is, it would have been a better race for him.
Yeah.
Than the P4.
Yeah. Even if it was P3. But yeah, just really unlucky that weekend.
Yeah.
And then Monza, like, I don't know how much of that I would put on Norris, because one, I don't know if either of them were winning because Red or Ferrari made a really good, a really strong strategy play.
I think McLaren lost that race.
McLaren lost it because of...
Basically, McLaren opened the door for Leclerc to gamble on a single stop.
Yeah.
They pitted both the drivers. For one, also, and by the way, they did that for one single reason.
If McLaren had have been clearer about being in a title fight at that point, they would have made it very clear to Oscar not to dive bomb down the outside, right? Or whatever conversations happened behind the scenes, Norris wouldn't have left it open because he would have assumed that, the rules have been put in place. Clarity. And if those two hadn't have been fighting there, I think they would have pulled away enough together that the one stop wouldn't have worked for Leclerc. It was that infighting that basically let that happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The thing is, there are far too many races. There's even the race in Canada to an extent they lost. Silverstone was a well-earned win that basically went begging. There are a lot of
I just don't think McLaren hasn't earned the Drivers' Championship this year, full stop. So
yeah,
for them to win it is going to be one of two things. Either Lando goes on an absolute run and, Max has a couple of bad weekends, or Oscar is right behind Norris and that swings it. Or Red Bull have really thrown something
Max
away.
Needs is the next 3 races he needs to win the triple header.
I don't think he will.
A clean sweep.
Yeah.
I mean, just if he does the clean sweep, these 3 races, they are basically Austin, Mexico, and third is Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazil will be tough, but the first 2 races he might be able to win. The thing is, if he's able to have a clean sweep, the points gap will decrease, and that's when the alarm bells will start ringing at Red Bull. And that's when we might see a more desperate Max, and more desperate Max, just like any other driver, he makes mistakes.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if Norris wins even like 2 out of the 3 next races, and in those races Max isn't second, if Max is third, fourth, fifth, that's when it's going to be problematic. That's where it's going to be. I still just think that kind of Max has probably realised that McLaren need to get everything perfect over the next 6 races to win this championship. And Max has probably realised that McLaren haven't shown that they can do that yet.
They haven't, right?
No, but then again, the other thing is this is very much like it's 2009 so much, isn't it? Like so much of the season is 2009. Like obviously Red Bull isn't quite Brawn. That's a different situation. But the way the season's played out has been very much like that.
And even that Red Bull was not similar to the McLaren here, because there were races where in 2009 the McLaren with Lewis was much faster. He fucked up a couple of races. Ferrari was quick by the second half, and Kimi
that's
what I
mean. It's a similar season in that length, isn't it? Though, where you've got other factors in there that kind of let Brawn just hold out the championship by the end.
Yeah,
and this is the kind of similar thing where Red Bull have just done enough that because the others are fighting.
It seems like it, right?
If Norris had gone on a run for the second half of the season and won, like if McLaren hadn't thrown it away, this would have been just an easy championship.
A much easier championship.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyways, a lot of talks about Red Bull and McLaren. Let's talk about Mercedes, by the way.
Yeah.
There's 6 races left for Lewis.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. It's been so long since Lewis joined McLaren or Mercedes that it just him outside of Mercedes just feels odd now. Like it felt odd when he went to Mercedes because it was like, that experience of Lewis, it felt like at that point Lewis was going to stay with McLaren, no matter what.
Forever.
Yeah, no matter what.
He was on a 5-year contract with McLaren that ended in 2012.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We thought it was going to go a long time. And then now we're getting a kind of similar thing. But unfortunately for Lewis, I don't think it's going to go the same as moving to Mercedes did because, well, it's Ferrari first of all.
Well, Leclerc is not Rosberg, so that's a slight difference. But yes, I think...
And also, even if Leclerc was Rosberg at that age now, where Rosberg is, like Hamilton's at a different point in his career now, where a younger driver can always be more ruthless. They've always got less to lose, than an older driver, an experienced driver. I think it would be nice to see if we see the fiery Lewis against a ruthless Leclerc, honestly, because that would set it up. It would be beautiful.
That would make the 2 years very, very... Because look, I'm slightly bored of one thing in Formula 1 right now. There are no rivalries.
Yeah.
There are just no rivalries. Everyone is playing fucking pedal, whatever that new... I don't know,
this
the
is what
cheaper
I was
version of
hoping if McLaren had got their shit... If McLaren had got their shit together, Lando Norris and Max falling out would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think Max has realised, McLaren are throwing it away, so we can stay friends for now, you know?
I think Max panicked in Austria when consistently Lando was the guy who was right behind him. But then the next couple of races, he kind of took it easy because
McLaren had their infighting and everything, and it was like, that's just that. So
yeah.
The next 6 races though for Mercedes are going to be interesting, because if Mercedes bring an upgrade that can allow them to fight for wins at a couple of races,
for me the worry is what kind of intra-team dynamics do we see? Because that's I think.
But also, I do
possibly
think
a win might be on the table in Austin.
And look swings back and forth in Formula One, and Russell's owed a bit of luck now at this stage, to be honest. I know he got lucky at Austin, but my point is, he has been consistently the better driver, and he's behind in the points.
That's hilarious. By the way, the gap is not
19 points.
Yeah, just 19 points,
which is insane when you think about the swing that Lewis had at those 2 races.
It's basically 50 point swing Lewis had.
And he's still only 19 points ahead of Russell. So, Russell's been incredible this season, which this is what... I know I'm going to talk about Lewis at Ferrari again for a sec. We will talk about Mercedes in a minute, I promise. But this is what concerns me about Lewis going to Ferrari, is that if you ask me who would win in a straight-out same-car title fight between Leclerc and Russell, I would say Leclerc would edge it. I do think Russell's up there, but I think Leclerc is the more complete driver in many ways. And
a more pure talent.
And at Mercedes, 2 out of 3 seasons now, Russell has been the better driver in his own team.
Yeah.
So now Hamilton's going to a different team with a driver who has been essentially baked into that team for a few years and is a more complete driver than Russell. So that's why I just don't think it's going to go the way everyone wants it to. Well, for a lot of people want it to.
That's why I said first 6 races, if Leclerc ends up out-qualifying Lewis considerably...
Which he will, I think, yeah.
Which he might.
First 6 races, definitely. Lewis always takes time to warm up anyway. So I think that's...
that 6 races are a lot. If he's warming up until then, there's half the quarter of the season is gone. But
yeah. But anyway,
there's too much baggage that Lewis carries.
There's going to be a lot of angry Mercedes fans.
This turns into the entire nonsense that we've had, the sabotage and all that.
The simple fact is, as well, though, it's going to be even worse now, because realistically now, for the rest of the season, even though Kimi's coming in, George is going to get all of the briefings that Hamilton's not going to be allowed into, because they're going to be talking about technical stuff. Hamilton is going to be phased out of a lot of meetings with upgrades and what they're doing and so on.
Already would have been by now.
Yeah, but it's going to... I think that the fact of that happening is going to become more and more obvious over the next few races, because George is going to have insights that Lewis is not going to be allowed to have access to, even about this season's car, because this season's car is going to play a big part of next season's car as well. So he's going to just be phased out of a lot of things. So those sabotage rumors are going to get worse, because there's an actual part now of Russell will be getting preferential treatment.
Exactly.
Because that's the way it always happens. And it's going to be more obvious.
Look, it should happen. It's basically Formula One, and that's how things are. There's just no other way to actually look at it.
The only thing that I think will play in Hamilton's favour is, I think that if Kimi wasn't coming in next year, if it was another, like a number 2, an obvious number 2, like a Bottas was coming in next year, I think Russell would be pillaging all of the best mechanics and everything from that side of the grid 100%. Right now. The only reason that's not happening, and the saving grace for Lewis, I think, is Toto's probably like, no, those are Kimi's people for next year. So it's like keeping it.
He's already kept those players.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, what I truly worry about it, and I think maybe, honestly, Lewis Hamilton fans should look at it from this perspective, that it's been 11 years that Lewis has been part of this team. Out of those 11 years, he had a championship winning car for 8 seasons. That's what 72% win percentage of having a car. That is, no driver has ever had that in history.
No,
just be thankful.
Just
enjoy these 6 races, because look, this partnership, when it ends, it will be the most dominant partnership in Formula One history. without a doubt.
Yep.
So treat it as that.
Yeah.
But we all know what's going to happen.
No, won't. Well, you'll get the reasonable fans like Baxty from last week will obviously treat it like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of unreasonable Hamilton fans.
I think what's going to happen is, look, there are 2 races where I expect Lewis to perform better than George. That's Austin this weekend, and I think Mexico. These are 2 races where Lewis tends to do well.
Yeah.
If he doesn't,
I would have said Brazil if it wasn't for the fact that Russell's been really, really good around Brazil as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. Other than that, I don't really see Lewis outperforming George at any other track. I really don't see it. And that's where it will get very interesting. And I think this weekend, if Lewis wins the race, I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
Again, an outside shot. But he does some special stuff at Austin. So really... And he's been... I think Mercedes has let him down twice. In 2022, if he was on the right tire, he would have won. In 2023,
he got disqualified. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he also got disqualified. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But even in the strategy terms, it was Red Bull outfoxing Mercedes to an extent where basically Max made his way through the field.
Probably for the best that he didn't win that race, though, isn't it? For a lot of the fans,
that would have sucked even more.
A P2 disqualification is one thing. Winning and getting disqualified is quite another.
Yeah,
that's not a fun feeling, you know.
I would have loved the reaction to that.
I remember when I was an F1 driver and I got my wins taken away from me. It was always tough.
Okay, just to wrap this up, who do you think finishes ahead in the championship?
Probably Hamilton, and the only reason I'll say this is because 19 points doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're finishing 4th and 5th and you're not fighting at the front, 19 points can take a while to swing up. And I don't think, like, as much as Russell has been the better driver, they have both been quite good at getting like a lot out of that package. So it's not like Russell's been finishing like 2nd and Hamilton's been finishing 5th. It's consistently like a 5th and a 7th place, or a 4th and a 5th, or like apart from those 2 weekends where
Baku.
Russell got so unfortunate and actually was disqualified and DNF'd.
Lost 50 points, basically.
Yeah. So unless that happens and it swings in Russell's favour, I think Hamilton will now finish ahead, because it's going to be eking like 2 or 3 points here, 4 or 5 points there. And I can see it swinging back and forth a couple of times as well. So I think it probably stays roughly the same. They probably finish kind of 5 or 6 points off each other. If Russell finishes ahead, fair play to Russell. Like that's some clawback.
So I think in the 4 races, he's closed down the gap by 15 points.
Okay, right. What? In 4 races?
Yeah.
Oh, that's way more than I thought it would be.
It was 34 points, I think, at the start of the summer break. So there have been 4 races, and the gap has been closed by, I think, 15 points.
Okay, so he could end up finishing ahead then if he continues on that streak. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But again, it includes the race in Baku where Lewis, I think he had a bad qualifying or something.
Yeah.
And he started the race at the back of the grid and all those shenanigans happened.
You need a couple more big swings like that is the unfortunate thing. Yeah. So
precisely. So it could happen, but not necessarily.
I think if he wins, if he beats him on points, at least it gives Hamilton fans a nice going away present before the absolute disaster class that's going to happen in Ferrari, I think. So that's nice. It's something. I still think Lewis should have retired after the end of 2022, but anyway.
I think he should have retired at the end of 2020, because if he had done that, his stake at being the GOAT would have been much higher than where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, even
much
if he had
higher.
if he had retired at the end of 2021 even, I think it would have been like he's pissed off and he's gone. But it would have just been like a legendary story of, right, Michael Massey could have kept his job. Everyone would have been happy, basically. But no, like
oh God,
I'm excited to see him at Ferrari.
Would have been happy, by the way. He would have come back to Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Lewis in Ferrari, but I don't think it's going to be the feel good story that a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans are expecting.
I think people have to realize that Ferrari is not famous for happy endings.
Maybe this is just because like I'm a big fan of Vettel and Alonso, and I've seen how that's gone for them.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, you realistically rate all these guys. You know the fact that drivers can only do so much.
Well, you know that Alonso and Vettel are both brilliant drivers, and you know Ferrari wasn't exactly kind to either of them.
Yeah,
we've seen. Look, we know how good Leclerc is. No, we've seen how many times it's broken him.
Leave that aside. We all know how great Michael Schumacher was, and even he was pushed out of Ferrari.
Yeah,
by the way, so, in 2006 when they forcibly signed Luca Di Montezemolo, what an idiot! But when he signed Kimi Räikkönen, he basically pushed out Michael, and just I think 2 years later, look where Ferrari is. Yeah. Basically screwing the entire team on his own. That was what Ferrari did at that very moment. It was basically the dream team. So just look at how the entire thing is going to pan out.
Imagine Michael Schumacher staying there for 2007, 2008. There's a good chance he wins both of those championships. Yeah.
9-time world champion.
Yeah.
I've seen far too many deluded takes on Twitter where they claim that the Ferrari in 2007 and 2008 was half a second quicker than McLaren.
No,
and like
McLaren threw those championships. Well, McLaren threw the championship away in 2007. Realistically, more so than Ferrari winning it. And in 2008, I mean, I think that Schumacher would have done better than Massa personally. So I think he probably would have won that by, a little bit, not by much, but he would have won it by a little bit. Could have changed the course of history.
And by the way, he would not be spinning in the wet, just like Massa was. So you won't have Silverstone 08.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's a few races in 2008 where I think he has enough of a points gap.
Yeah,
where when you get into the final at Brazil, that doesn't matter anymore. He's already enough ahead to make the difference. So it's like,
And by the way, Michael's the kind of mind games he played with the kids,
because his
Lewis.
bike his bike accident wasn't until 2009, was it?
2009.
Yeah, so, he would have still been the Michael that we kind of knew, operating. So I think
it was what happened was he was supposed to replace Felipe in 2009.
Yeah.
Because he was still active. He was still testing for Ferrari and doing all those things, and he was still right on the pace. But as soon as he had the accident, just around that time, and then he had to just sit out. That was when he had the urge to come back to Formula 1, but the fitness was... And the thing is, these kinds of neck injury compromises you. So, yeah.
That's just, it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Even Massa wasn't the same after the accident. Like, these things do have a big effect,
In his case, the entire thing was open. I mean, that was a gross accident.
Yeah.
He's lucky to be alive, honestly.
Yeah.
Anyways, now the final topic, by the way, and this is thanks to Lawrence, by the way, again, friend of the show.
Law VS, I'm guessing, yeah?
Law VS, yes.
Yeah.
So he asked the question that which driver should Audi put in alongside Nico Hülkenberg? So the options on the table are Bottas, Colapinto, Gabriel Bortoleto. I think these are the three options that are there on the table.
You know what's really strange to me? Really strange to me. I know I'm not going to give an answer straight away, but this is a really strange one to me. They're offering... Bottas doesn't want to take a 1-year contract, right? And apparently they're only offering him a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, they don't want to take Bortoleto or Colapinto only on a short-term loan because he could be pulled back, which realistically would mean taking him on a 1-year, year-to-year contract. So, it doesn't make any sense to me that you go, well, we don't want to take Colapinto or Bortoleto on a 1-year loan, but we'll give Valtteri a 1-year contract.
What I've understood is the case for Bortoleto is that McLaren do not want to send him to Audi.
Okay. Yeah. So that's more McLaren than them, is it? It's more McLaren. Okay.
Colapinto thing is a bit weird. I am not entirely sure why it's not gone through. One of the reasons is it will be on loan, so whenever Williams wants, it can take it back. And
I
that's
would
not
imagine, though, the loan is year to year. Like, I would imagine it's not just any race.
Could be. Could
You
be.
know?
But the thing is, picking up a driver on loan for a team like Audi who would want to build its team around a driver.
But that's my point, though. Why,
That's not appealing.
taking Colapinto on loan for a year surely seems like a better option than giving Bottas a 1-year contract. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, it's the same thing.
I don't
but
think so.
You're getting a young driver in.
But what's the point of having a young driver in when the car is only going to fight for P19 and P20?
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
why
see
not
the
have
point
two
there.
experienced drivers in
To
the
build
team,
on the development.
build
Yeah.
the entire thing for a year or two, which is
Which is
minimum.
why Bottas doesn't want to take a 1-year contract, because he wants to.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to put that time and development in, and then
and then someone
Audi
else comes in and just.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a reason why? Again, this might be expecting Binotto to actually be smart for once, but do you think there might be a reason why they're not finalizing the decision? Maybe they're waiting for Red Bull to play their card.
Perez. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the reason they're
Because
offering
if
Bottas.
Checo is fired, I think they'll pick him up in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because I think, the reason they're offering Bottas a 1-year contract, like you said, is they just want a development driver for a year, right?
Yeah.
The question then becomes, though, like, Perez is more valuable than Bottas in one area, which is Perez can give you more information on a top running team more recently. Bottas has no experience in Mercedes in the ground effect era.
And he's been there for 3 years already, and whatever he had to give, he already has.
They could take it off him, yeah. It's already out. So keeping him for next year is purely just having a capable pair of hands while you develop, but it doesn't give you any benefit. Whereas Perez, yes, gives you the benefit of he's just come from Red Bull, so he can tell you all of the differences that he had in Red Bull, straight away, which cuts out a lot of, gives Mattia a lot of help. So yeah, I think that does make sense. If Perez doesn't become an option, then like the problem with Bottas is if Bottas would accept a 1-year contract, then I think keeping Bottas kind of makes sense. If Bottas wants a 2-year contract, then I would say no. Like, there's no point. Like, you've already got Hülkenberg in there. Bottas isn't giving you any extra information, so you can develop the car with Hülkenberg's knowledge and bring in some sort of young driver to see how it goes. So unless Bottas signs, if Bottas signs a 1-year contract, makes sense. If Perez becomes available, I think you could probably
wait until December. That's what I think.
Yeah. But I think you could probably give Perez a 2-year contract just because, even though it's the same...
I don't mind Checo getting a 2-year contract
because he's bringing something in and you're probably still getting the same performance level as Bottas anyway. So it's an advantage over Bottas.
And he's also opening up the Mexican market for Audi.
Yeah. Huge money in and everything. So it makes sense. So he gives you some advantages that Bottas just doesn't. I just don't see the point in giving Bottas a 2-year contract. So if Perez doesn't become available and Bottas doesn't want a 1-year contract, then I think in that case, maybe.
He's sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. So just put in there.
That or just take a Colapinto for a year. I just don't see the point in
even that.
But
I think they won't take a Colapinto for one simple reason, because they'll be investing the money and everything in building this driver who will be gone.
Yeah.
And
whereas Porsche is kind of part of the family.
Yeah. And they'll actually be able to assess how good Porsche is alongside.
Because Porsche is a Formula 2 champion. Like, there is a potential.
And he was very competitive. I think it was just 1 or 2 points, the gap between him and Oscar. The last race of the Formula 3 championship, it was him, Logan, and Oscar. Any of them could have won. And then it was Oscar who came out on top by 1 point. So,
So
he's good.
Porsche is a good... Well, Porsche was really hyped. He just unfortunately finished the F2 season at the same... Like, it was one of those years where there was no movement in F1. So that was that, so...
And he's still very young. I think he's 20, 21 by now. 22 probably. He's, I think, a couple of years younger than Oscar. So that's...
There's the elephant in the room then as well, isn't there? The other German that they keep talking about, throwing back and forth.
Mick Schumacher.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Mick Schumacher.
I don't see the upside.
Well, I do and I don't. The one upside I see is that Mick Schumacher is a capable pair of hands and would be a really strong midfield driver in the right environment, I think. And he's got the experience where if you bring a Portier in, you're gambling that he will be just like, say, Colapinto and Lawson, and Piastri, where he'll adapt quickly and kind of get on top of things quickly.
Yeah.
If you're bringing Mick in, you are bringing a Mick in who kind of has already kind of found some of those limits and made a lot of those mistakes. Yeah. So bringing Mick Schumacher in could have that upside of, right, it's not quite it's a young driver we can mold, but it's not an inexperienced driver either, so he's had those mistakes. And there's the marketing upside of, it's 2 German drivers in the Audi team, German team,
driving around in P19, P20.
Sure, yeah.
That'll work like a treat.
2 drivers that had such potential that we all wanted to win, and both of which floundered.
Yeah, that's what made me sad, actually, because I realized that after Nico spending a couple of years at Haas, he's going to Sauber, and it's only going to get worse for him. So yeah, at least he'll retire as a rich man. So there's always a positive. Yeah.
So Portier or Mick Schumacher makes sense. Either of those two really makes sense. If Bottas will sign a 1-year contract, I would say, given where they are, Bottas is probably a better choice because you just develop around him and he gives you the experience. If Perez becomes available, then I think that is the best option. Because that could give them a lot of insights that they don't have.
I think what they need to do ideally is, and I think what Checo needs to do, he needs to first of all give up the dream of retiring at Red Bull, because then that dream is going to basically come true this season.
The question is, does Checo want to keep going? Because
why not? He's very young. He's 34 or something.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the payment is, though, doesn't it? As well,
it's Audi. They'll pay him.
Yeah.
Plus, this Carlos Slim basically.
It could work out for Audi as well, because if Checo, for example, went to them for a year or two, they then brought in a young driver, but they treated him well. Checo could be the type of driver that they could move into like a WEC project or into another series project or whatever, and would be very, very capable, in that team.
Might even win.
Even he could end up being a rally driver because Mexico rally's big here, so there's lots of options there.
I think once Checo retires from Formula 1, he's done. Maybe, the kind of money he's earned, and I mean the exchange rate in Mexico is quite favorable.
Well, I mean, look, he's on every Walmart here when you come around. So he could make a big thing. He could launch some business here in Mexico and be huge for the rest of his life.
His father's a politician, so.
Yeah, his father's the governor of the state that Cancun's in, which is why they're pushing for a Cancun Grand Prix. So
fantastic.
Yeah, his whole family's from like an hour from where I live. Here, so he's not that far away. So when he retires, I'm going to move to that town and just kind of skulk around the local shops, and then trying. Yeah, because then I can get him on the podcast.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah, I'll get him to be a co-host of the podcast.
Yeah, we can have 3. I mean, you don't want a Mexican podcast. No one takes it seriously in that case.
I'm meant to replace you. But anyway.
Yeah. Start your own podcast. Anyways, enough about all these things. Austin, USGP.
Oh, shit.
First impressions, by the way. Your favorite race weekend in Austin?
Oh, God. I don't know. When Mick Schumacher helped Max win. Probably the best moment of my life. Mick Schumacher helped Max win.
Yeah.
There's Cool Down Room 2015. I thought it was 2016 for some reason, but 2015. Rosberg and Hamilton.
When Lewis won the title from Sebastian Vettel.
If I'm honest, actually, someone brought this up yesterday. I think it was Wimbo brought up that race yesterday, and I thought that was Spain 2015 or 16. I don't know why. It obviously wasn't 16 because they crashed out, but it was US Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what other ones stand out because it's a good racetrack. I'm just trying to think which
race. The first race was nice in 2012. When the Vettel-Hamilton battle happened throughout the race.
Yeah. Was that 2012 though? Yeah.
Yeah. The inaugural race.
That was the first race. Why do I think it went back longer than that? Oh, because the USGP was on before. Sorry, it's the name that's confusing me. It was in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nice. I think 2015 was good overall because of the action that was Max finishing P4 in a Toro Rosso.
P4 in a Toro Rosso, yeah. Not quite Sebastian Vettel level, but he'll get there.
Yeah, he'll get there in due time. But that was, again, brilliant race for him. In general, the races have been very dull. The action has been there, but very, very rarely.
It's a fun track to watch,
Slow
but
burns.
I'm trying to think. It's not like it doesn't stand out to me like a Baku
On-track action is not there.
Yeah.
Strategy is what truly, plays a big role. I mean, the last three races have been very interesting, but if you look at the on-track action, not really.
Yeah.
Not much.
I bet now, after the season we've had, the next 6 races will just be incredibly boring after this race.
We've had boring races even before. After summer break, how many races have been very interesting?
All of them.
Not that many, right?
If you're a
Singapore was boring.
Norris fanboy like me, they have been very interesting.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so coming to
predictions,
what we can expect from the race weekend, ideally.
I
think we might. By the way, the track will be resurfaced, so the bumps and all are gone. Plus, the track is grippier. I mean, at least it was grippier earlier in the season. The MotoGP race was there. I don't exactly know what the situation is with F1. But other than that, I think the question that actually would be there is, since there are 3 particular sections, there's the first section is somewhat similar to what Japan has with the Senna S's.
Yeah.
Not Senna S's. Are they called the Senna S's? The S's.
I think, they are, aren't they?
Or are they called in Brazil? They are called Senna S's.
They're the Senna S's. Is Suzuka Senna S's as well from when he was driving for Honda, no?
Not entirely sure. I think the one in Brazil is
that. No, they are definitely called the Senna S's in
Suzuka.
In Japan. Or sorry, in Brazil. It's the Senna S's, obviously.
No, in Suzuka, what are they called?
I thought it was Senna S's as well for some reason.
Yeah, but it's a similar thing. It's basically the first sector is similar. The first sector in Austin is similar to the one in Japan. So that part is, it might help probably a car like Red Bull and McLaren. The second sector is just straight line speed and everything, and basically whichever car tends to favor the low downforce setups. The third sector,
they're called the S curves, which is like the snake curves.
Yeah,
but I'm fairly sure everyone calls them the Senna curves. I don't know why that's standing out in my brain, but I'm fairly sure I've been calling them the Senna curves or the Senna S's.
Me too.
I know in Brazil, but he was a Honda McLaren driver as well, right? So it would make sense.
Yeah,
and it's a Honda owned track, so I think the S curves they just call the Senna curves.
Suzuka is a Honda owned track, right?
Yeah. Even though you would think it would be Suzuki, but anyway.
And even the CEO of Toyota is Toyoda.
Yeah.
It was there on the press release.
As far as I understand in Japanese culture, is whatever your name is, you just get given that company. So if you're born Toyota, you just get Toyota.
That's just how it works, right?
Which is why Kyoto Fleshlight owns Fleshlight. That's not true. That's.
By the way, Kyoto protocols are from there only, right?
Yeah.
Are you aware of those? Basically the climate change protocols.
Yeah.
Carbon emissions.
Yeah, from Kyoto.
Everything.
From Kyoto. Yeah.
Anyways, moving back to this. So basically the thing is there are 3 different sections which are attacking 3 different parts of the car when it comes to efficiency. You have the first part where you need great direction change, then the long straights, and then finally the slow speed section is similar. Which is somewhat similar to, I'd say, probably something that we have with Monaco or Hungary, Singapore to a certain extent, Singapore's middle sector. Which car I think McLaren would do good, would be one of the better cars here. It was
I think
brilliant
McLaren
last
should
season
be McLaren should be good here because they've been kind of good overall. So there should be nothing here that challenges that car massively. The Red
I'm not
Bull,
entirely sure if Ferrari and Mercedes fall.
I think Mercedes should do well around here anyway. The direction change in the S's maybe not so much, but the the actual the rest of the circuit. It's a hard one to call, but I think Mercedes should do well around it. Ferrari, I don't think are going to be great here, to be honest. I don't know why, but I don't think they're going to be great here.
They were on pole last season, but then fell off, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Charles got pole here, right?
I need to finish building my new system that I was showing you, because that's going to show all these track performance stats.
Oh, yeah. That would actually be more reliable than whatever nonsense you see on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. By far.
Yeah. But yes, I think Charles was on pole. He started the race on pole and finished, I think, P5. Oh, yeah, he was disqualified, so...
Yes. Yeah, he
good
was,
on him. And if I'm not wrong, I think it was down to the car not being kind on its tires. Again, tires are going to play a major role here.
In medium speed, Ferrari has actually been slightly closer over the course of the races to Red Bull. In low speed, Ferrari has been like the closest to Red Bull, right?
Yeah,
in low speed, yeah.
I think they should have won in Singapore.
In high speed, McLaren has been the out and out fastest. Now, this is over the course of the whole season, not just since the upgrades and whatever. But the thing with all of that is that in all of those situations, right, McLaren have been basically right behind whoever's like the closest to Red Bull by the tiniest margin. So like the super times for Ferrari and McLaren in low speed has been 100.45 to 100.46. Now, that's over the whole season. So if I change this to just the last 7 races, then it's McLaren's going to be ahead in all 3, I think.
Yeah,
because it's that close.
Yeah.
So McLaren should do really well here, especially because you've a track that has all these different characteristics. So I would imagine that McLaren will fare the best in this track.
I think both Red Bull and Ferrari are bringing the flexi wings, front wings.
Yeah. So that should.
What kind of impact that has, we'll need to see.
I think people love to make out that all these things are magic bullets, and that if Red Bull had it, then they would have been beating. And it's like they come and it's like, oh, it added half a tenth. Brilliant. You know, like it's always the case. It's the overall package and how everything works together that's most important.
True.
So if the bumps being gone and the fact that Red Bull were strong in Singapore, I think Red Bull and McLaren should be the ones fighting out here.
If they are, we might be in for a very, very interesting battle, because Max is going to be aggressive in that case.
Yeah.
Because Max and Lando won't have anything to lose, because then he would be in a situation where he'll try to gain as much as he can, as much ground as he can on a Lando, and maybe try to push him him into a mistake or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that could make things very, very interesting.
If that does happen, what's going to be most interesting, I think, is not even the Max and Lando battle. It's how McLaren handle it, because if that is the case, sorry, Jesus, this flu. I'm really allergic to talking about anything to do with Ricciardo, including the second seat at McLaren. If that is the case, then it's going to be interesting to see if they kind of play those games with Oscar and Lando.
Yeah,
because if Oscar's ahead of Lando and Lando's in second and Max is in third, you have to at least think about swapping the two.
They will.
But they haven't done that yet, and that's a race win. You know,
that's true. I think again, Andreas Stella's true test. If he's going to be a strong and successful team principal, he needs to take the tough calls. Let's see.
If there's a couple of races now over the rest of the season where Norris and Oscar are kind of fighting for first, and Oscar's ahead by a couple of seconds, and Max is 5 or 6 seconds back, so there's enough space to kind of swap them around. Yeah. If they don't swap them around, I genuinely think that's going to be where the start of Norris having conversations with
will start appearing.
Yeah. So, at this weekend, though, I do think McLaren should be the better car, unless Red Bull have fixed the balance completely. Even that then, the McLaren will be. Even then, McLaren will be faster, I think.
Yeah.
But the difference maker then becomes Max, because the difference between the two in terms of pace is a tenth or two. It's not like it's half a second. Yeah. And Max has proven time and time again, if it's a tenth or two, he can make up for it. But look, if Norris has also proven that when he's on the pace.
Yeah, how? Sorry?
I was just going to say, but then Norris has also proven if the car is working and everything goes right, Norris will just pump in lap after lap after lap after lap as well and just pull away. So
look, if there's a straight battle between Max and Lando, I think that's worth a treat. But again, how Oscar fits into the equation is something that's going to be interesting because I think he would be pissed off after what happened in Singapore.
I really want to see more of those races because Lando is so underestimated. I do want to see McLaren making the right calls and the cars being
basically
close enough.
Facilitating Lando so that he can express himself perfectly.
Yeah.
Which is what every team should be doing on a very basic level.
It would be amazing to see them two actually fight because we've seen in Austria they came together. And I think after that, then you obviously have both of them maybe being a bit more cautious, but they're both aggressive.
Not really battling so it would be, well. There wasn't too many, other than probably Zandvoort, where Max knew that it was pointless.
Yeah.
And
the offset was so different, So
yeah. Okay, so what do you expect the pecking order to be for the top 4?
For the teams, you mean? Or
for the teams.
I think it's going to be McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. Personally, I think Mercedes will be faster.
I think that's a safe bet, ideally, because both McLaren and both Mercedes and Red Bull. It's 2 a.m. here.
Yeah.
Both fine. Mercedes and Ferrari, I'd say they are a bit of a wild card. We might see them do well, we might not. We have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
If either of them do, alarm bells at Red Bull. But I think it's a safe bet to say that it will be McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari.
Yeah.
And if even there's a slight change where either a Ferrari or a Mercedes leapfrogs Red Bull here, oh boy, that's going to be interesting.
If Mercedes
Verstappen, first of all, is going to lose his mind.
Well, he's going to be signing a contract with Mercedes about 6 minutes after the race.
He would have already done that.
Yeah. If Mercedes or Ferrari beat Max here, and McLaren is the ones who win, then as far as I'm concerned, title fight's wide open because it's really then just up to McLaren and Norris not to throw it away.
Yeah,
because that will mean
gap will decrease a lot.
But it will also just mean that Norris won't need to do the almost impossible, which is win every race. Because he could comfortably do a couple of P2s, P3s, where we know that there's so many drivers fighting at the front that there could be a couple of races where Max will be P5, P6, so it makes it easier. I
think a lot will come down to where Oscar is. Because if you have a McLaren P1, P2 with Lando first, Oscar second, I think that seals the deal for the most part. If they can continue to manufacture this for the next couple of races, then you start seeing the cracks.
I still think you need
at stake.
I still think you need a couple of tracks where Mercedes and Ferrari are ahead of Max, or one of the two is ahead of Max. Because otherwise it's very reliant on Lando basically winning every race. Which I think Lando's a very underrated talent, but I don't think he's quite a Max Verstappen or Vettel who can just perfect every weekend. At least until he proves me.
Have a Red Bull type team behind him.
No,
which makes a lot
and
of
he's got Oscar in there as well, which just makes it so much more difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Finally, to wrap it up, what's your top 3 prediction?
I'm gonna say Lando, Max, Oscar.
Yeah, it's something similar in mind. I think I'll go with Lando, Oscar, and Max. I think McLaren will be too fast.
Okay. See, that would be interesting to watch. Yeah. It'll be really interesting.
Wait.
I was just gonna say it'd be really interesting to watch Twitter. If just before you go, it'd be really interesting to watch Twitter if it's Lando and Oscar in the outright fastest car, and Lando finishes like 22 seconds ahead of Oscar, because it'll be like, will you all shut the fuck up now, please? Like, just stop with this madness, because what it'll be then. Oh, the team's clearly favouring Norris. Is the only reason he won. It's like, oh, for God's sake!
Yeah. Anyway, I want to make one change. By the way, I think it will be Lando, Oscar, Lewis. Yeah.
If that happens, the title fight is wide open, I think. because that would mean that
Lewis at Austin tends to do very well. So I'm.
But either way, if that happens, that means that that Red Bull haven't fixed the issues completely, or it means that Mercedes have jumped Red Bull. So if either of those two things are true,
Lewis is just being brilliant. I mean, that could also happen.
Sure, but look, he needs a better car than Max to do that realistically, or Max to have an off weekend big time.
Yeah, sure.
Because Max is just a better driver than Lewis. So should we finish there?
Yeah. And on that bombshell.
And on that racist bombshell, it's time to... Because apparently the only reason anyone would ever say that is because of racism, apparently. God, I hate the world.
Did you get called out on something like this? I was actually expecting a few such comments on one of our videos. Luckily that didn't happen, but yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I never get called a racist on Twitter because I always just... I did for a while because I would say bad things about Hamilton. And then I did a few tweets replying, basically calling people absolute morons and explaining why what they've said is racist or something, and people just stopped. So I just don't get it anymore. You know, I'm white. I can't be racist.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no sense at all.
No, none. But yeah, no. Yeah. I just said that to piss people off, so they'd subscribe. Subscribe. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.